Today in our 2015 Chevrolet Silverado 3500, we're going to take a look at and also show you how to install the Firestone Air Command 1 single function standard duty compressor. This offers an analog gauge and a maximum PSI of 130. Now here's what our Firestone control panel is going to look like. As you can see, we've got it mounted nicely under the dash using the provided hardware. Now our control panel is going to allow us to instantly change the pressure in our airbags, whether we need to inflate them or we need to deflate them. We can get this to match our load precisely. In this case, like the gentleman has a salt spreader installed on his truck, so as he works, his load gets lighter and lighter. He'd be able to just, by hitting that tab down, lower the air pressure in the bags to accommodate for that. Also, when he was ready to load back up, once he has his load in, he could inflate his bags, get his ride height back where he wants to, and be on the road safely. The backlit gauge will also come on when we turn on our running light, so as we're heading down the road, we'll be able to plainly see it. Here's our compressor installed underneath the vehicle. Now this standard duty compressor is going to be great for, this kind of purpose, filling up airbags and just keeping them inflated so we don't have to rely on an air source. It's going to mount right up to the frame rail. As you can see, we've got our airlines ran here, we've got an out to our switch, and then we got one that runs back to the bags and controls those pressures. Now this being a single path compressor, that means it has one output is going to control an airbag pair as one, so they're going to have equal pressure side to side. If you need to control each one individually, you'll definitely want to select a dual path compressor. The connection point to the vehicle itself is going to have a rubber grommet there with a brass insert. So we'll tighten it down just to that insert, and that's going to help isolate any vibrations we might get up from our compressor from going throughout the vehicle. It's also going to have an included relay kit that's very easy to wire up. That's going to save us a lot of headache with switches and things like that, and keep the system working really good for a long time. Now the compressor system's designed to work with all Firestone airbag kits that have up to a 1-gallon storage tank on them, and it'll work with any other type of airbag system that uses the 1/4-inch airline tubing with the push-to-fit connectors. Now the compressor is rated for 20 amps and it has a 15% duty cycle. Now here's what our air compressor kit's going to look like when we pull it out of the package. You see, here's the heart of our system. This is going to be our compressor. It'll mount it directly to our frame. To do that, typically we would use the included hardware. You can see we've just got the bolts, flat washers, and nuts here. But since this is a box channel frame, we're going to replace those with some number 8 self-tapping screws. Now they only need to be about 1.5 inches. These are about 2.5 inches. These are going to work. This is what we've got here in the shop. But you could use about 1.5 inches length as well. Number 8 self-tappers. It'll get it nice and secured. We're also going to have our air gauge panel here. Now this is going to allow us to inflate and deflate our airbags. It's going to give us an in-cab display so we know exactly how much pressure we've got in our airbag system. This is also going to be mounted using some of the provided hardware. You're going to have your filter kit. This will be connected directly to our compressor, and this is going to prevent the suction of dirt, grime, things like that into our airbag system. We certainly don't want that in our airbags, don't want it in the compressor. So they're going to give us a filter here and filter elements so we can replace those as need be. Now we've got a T so we can tie the compressor into our airbag system. This is a single path compressor, so this is going to join our airbags together as one. So whatever pressure our gauge says here, that's how much pressure we're going to have in both of our bags. If you need individual adjustability side to side, you'll want to go with a dual path compressor, which will have 2 switches so you can control your airbag independently. Now to get all this wired together, we're going to have a relay. It's already put together, pre-assembled for us. It's going to be really easy to use. Basically there's 3 wires that come off of it. The orange one, the white one, and the red one. The orange one is going to go to our compressor. The white one is going to run up and plug into the back of our switch panel in the cab of our truck. And the red one, we're going to take that right up to the battery, where just past the fuse holder we'll make our connection. Now to plumb the control panel to our compressor and then to our airbags, they've also provided us with a length of airline tubing so we can make those connections. You'll see here we have some quick splice connectors. We are going to be replacing these as well as our plug-in spade style terminals that we have on the outside of the vehicle. For the outside of the vehicle, we'll be using heat shrink butt connectors. For the inside connections, we'll be using non-heat shrink butt connectors. Now to mount our compressor, we want to come underneath the vehicle here and find a nice safe area. We're just in front of the fuel tank here and just behind this big cross member. We're going to be mounting the compressor right here. We want the outlet on the compressor to face the front of the truck in this application because it'll run through our control switch before it goes back to our airbags. I'm just going to mark my hole locations here. Now where we mounted our compressor, you'll see there's a little rib that runs right down this frame rail. We want to go just above that. If we try to screw into that, it might make it kind of difficult since it's in an off angle. So we're going to go just above our hole locations there. And we can use a center punch to mark. Now as we snug these down, we just want our screw to make contact with that bushing. We don't want to crush that brass bushing because that's going to isolate that. That'll allow any vibrations from our compressor to be absorbed by those rubber bushings rather than transferred into the vehicle. Now I'm going to start back here near my compressor, and I've got the red wire that's attached to the relay. That's got the fuse holder on it. We know this needs to go up to the battery area, so we're going to get that routed up there now. That's going to tell us exactly how much slack we have to make our connections. Right up and over here, we're going to follow along with these brake lines. They're heading the right direction, fuel lines also. Just going to leave this loose for now. Once we figure out the exact length we need to get up there, then we can zip tie it off. And once we get it up to this area, we just tuck it up in the engine compartment. We'll go up top, pull it on through. We'll pull our slack out and we'll run it right over there towards our battery. We can go right along with this wire loom. The one high is factory, the one low has been added as an aftermarket accessory. And once we've gotten over here by our battery, you can see our fuse holder has that little tab on it. We can zip tie that off just right here for now. You can make that your permanent mounting location if you want. And we'll connect this wire as our last step. Now we can get our wire secured. And we're also going to secure our relay. Again, since we've got the box frame here, I'm going to use a self-tapping screw. This time it'll be a number 12. Now to ground out our compressor, we just want to pick one of the locations that we use to secure it. I'm going to do the top one up here. And we can slide our ground right in behind that and use that as our connection point. All right, just like that. Now the red wire, the power wire, we're going to connect that to our orange wire here. I'll leave a little bit of extra length in case we need to change anything. And you could just plug these two in, wrap them up here, and be done with it, but we do want to increase the water resistance and reduce the chance of any problems, so we're going to be adding a heat shrink butt connector in line right there. Now we can use a heat source. Could be a mini torch. You can use a heat gun, or in our case, we're just going to use a regular lighter. And we want to heat those up. You'll see them shrink down. The wire will look like it gets a little bit thicker, and a little clear gel will come out of the end. And you know you've got a great connection there made that it's going to be watertight. Now we've routed our red wire, we've routed our orange wire. The last wire we need to take care of is our white wire. This needs to go into the cab of the vehicle. So if we'll come just forward on the frame rail here, you're going to see a grommet in the floor. Now there's already been one wire, aftermarket wire here, that's been ran through it. Now to get our white wire and our air lines in, we're just gonna make a small cut just beside that wire. Careful not to cut that wire. Once we've got that made, we'll use our air line and try to poke that through. That's gonna be stiffer than the wire and should give us our best chance. All right, that's through. Now let's go up. We'll look right under the carpet and we should be able to see it. All right, now that we know it's coming out where we want it, we're just gonna tape this off here using some electrical tape, and we'll need to gently pull it through so we don't pull it off of our air line. The biggest challenge is gonna be to get that front of that connector through that grommet. So if you use your tape, kind of taper it off there, it's gonna give you your best chance. Like that, it just smooths it out a little bit. Here in the floorboard, we'll start right here on this back edge. We wanna pull this threshold up. Once we have these out, we just pull straight back. You'll see how that's going to separate there, separating these two clips. We should just be able to lift up here and you can see where our airline tube came through. And there's our wire with the connector that we need. I'm going to pull all the slack out of that. Now we want to pull enough airline tubing out to run underneath the carpet and then to loop back right up here in the dash area. That's where we're going to be mounting those gauges. That's going to be more than enough to make our connection there. We'll just let this sit here for now and we can make our first connection to the compressor. Now I'm going to secure that airline off, but I'm going to leave my zip ties loose. There's another airline that needs to come up through and go in, but we want to make sure we have enough length for our first one before we cut that one and route it. Now we can pull the red cap out of the end of the compressor. We're going to thread in our push to connect fitting here. Use a 1/2 inch wrench to tighten that down. We want to have that in there far enough so that our thread sealant or our thread locker really makes good contact and gets down in there. It's going to help to prevent leaks as well as give us a good connection there. We'll measure off the distance we're going to need there. We're going to use part number F9009. It's going to be a tubing cutter that gives us a really nice flush cut. That's important to have in a system that's not going to leak on you. We'll push that in, you'll feel a little click, and then you'll feel another slide. And it'll slide in there, then you should be able to pull on it without it coming out. Now that end that we just cut, we're going to run right back up front there and go up through that same grommet. Now we're going to need to pull through about the same amount of slack that we had on our other one. Now we can run the airline tube we just ran into the cab towards the rear. This is going to make the connection with our airbags for us. Now just be sure as you're running your airline tubing, you're not scraping it over any sharp edges. That's going to cause basically little grooves in it that makes it almost impossible to get a good seal. Now we can come to our airbag line. This will be the one that runs to the rear fill nozzle. I'm gonna give a nice clean cut on that. We're gonna pull out the old airline, but you're gonna hang on to this just in case we need it to make the cross to come over here to our passenger side. Trim the other side of our airline there, and we'll want that to go in. We're gonna add that into one of the sides of our T, just like that, and then this will go right in the airbag. Now we can take the portion we removed, place it in, and we're going to run that over, and that should go in the top of our passenger side airbag after we remove its tube. Now we'll get this side cut to length, and when we pulled that other airline off, there should have been a couple of protective covers there. I'm going to use those and slide those right back up on. That'll offer some protection in case we get any heat from our exhaust here on the airline tube or any abrasions or anything like that. And then that'll just be placed on top of that bag. Bring those on and zip tie our airline off anywhere we can, all the way from the front to the back, just to get everything nice and secure. Now for the vent, we want to come right off the end of the compressor here. Let's slide on our airline tubing. Then we're going to run this right up over the fuel tank. I want to go to the fuel filler neck. That gives us a great attachment point. It's going to keep everything up and out of the way for us. And once we have it back here, you can see the fuel filler neck here. We're going to place a zip tie right around that neck and stick the filter end as far in there as we can. Here's our filter end. You can see you're just going to thread that on the back of it. Now they want to loop in the airline tubing here. Let's get that filter slid on there. Go the zip tie right here to hold our loop in place, and then one around the filter there for our placement of that. Now we can get our airline and our wiring tucked right up behind the floor panel here. We're going to be bringing it right up here on our dash. We're going to anchor it out right there. So we just want to make sure it's not going to make contact with the brake pedal or anything, which that looks like it'll be okay there. Zip tie up here to secure that point. Now this wire loom here on the back of this pedal, this is from a snowplow and salt spreader installation, so this isn't going to be here. Without that, you'll want to connect to one of the brackets that are up here higher. Just something that's not going to interfere with your brake pedal operation, of course. Now for our gauge and our operation switch there, we're going to be mounting it here on the dash. We want to keep it up high enough so that when our airlines come off the backside, they're going to come up like this. That when they come off the backside, that they're not going to interfere with us operating our brake. You're also going to have your hood latch here. You don't want them to be there. There's a bracket right here, and we'll use a zip tie on that bracket to keep this nice and secure, so these and our wiring all run up here nice and neatly. To do that, we are going to need to remove this panel. We've got just a couple screws here on the bottom. We'll be taking out. We should be able to pull that down. Now to get these out, you'll need a T15 torque bit. Once those are loose, we'll just pull down underneath our steering wheel here. And then straight out. You see that panel's going to come down for us. And we'll just mark our location on one side there, and we'll pull this out and get our holes drilled. Now for your hood release, there's a little catch right here you just need to push down on. And that should slide back out of there. Now we want to mark the center of our other hole location here. And we're going to drill our holes right in the middle of those slots. That'll give us some adjustability, just so we can get everything leveled out. I'm going to use a 7/32 bit. We'll place a couple of flat washers on our provided hardware. We'll fit those right down in and through. On the back side, we're going to put another washer and a lock nut. Then we'll use a 10mm socket on our lock nut there. I need a Phillips screwdriver for the other side. And I'm just going to get these down to where they're about snug. We'll want to mock this up into position and make sure it looks right. These nuts will be hard to get to behind this panel, that's why we removed it. So we want to make sure it's in the right position before you tighten it all the way down. Still got our adjustability there. And it looks like we're about right there, so just with about equal gap on each side. Looks like our holes are pretty square, so now we know that's our location. We'll tighten that down. And we'll start making the rest of our connections here on the back side. Now let's pop our hood latch back in place. We'll get our panel put back in place here, and then we can finish up our wiring. Now for the white wire that comes from the relay, that's the one that has the little spade terminal on the end of it here, the female side. You can simply plug that into one of the white wires coming off the back of the switch. We are going to be using a butt connector here just to get rid of all of our extra wire. It's always a good idea to leave yourself some, but we don't need this big spool of it. Now, this is good to hang on to because we can make our ground wire that we need to run over to this side out of this, so don't throw that away. Now, since we're inside the cab, just going to use a regular standard butt connector here. Now our other white wire here and one of the wires coming out of the back of the gauge will need to be spliced together. Then we're going to take those over to our ground location. Get that up and out of the way for now. This bracket, by the way, is for the salt spreader control. It's not something involved with the actual airbag kit. Just if you're wondering where that came from. We'll strip back the end of that white wire we just trimmed off of our relay wire there and add it into the other side like we said. Alright, we'll route that over to ground in just a second. This we're going to run to a 12-volt source that comes on when the vehicle's running lights are on. So that'll illuminate our gauge for us at night. And we've got our two air lines here to connect yet. Now in one of these air lines, if you don't remember which one comes from where, if you blow into them, one of them is going to be very solid. You're not going to be able to get very much air to go into it. The other one's going to be very springy. The one that's springy is connected to the air springs. The one that's not is connected to the compressor, the one that's more of a solid feel when you blow into it. Trim the ends of these off nice and clean. These don't have to be perfect. They're going to be onto a like a pressure fitting than a push to connect. Now the air line coming from the compressor is going to go in the connection that's on the back of our switch, and the air line that goes to our air bags is going to be connected to the one that's behind our gauge. Just want to make sure we get those pushed up on there as far as we can. We can get those zip tied off to our anchor point there. Now as far as looks are concerned here, you can do what you want to do. You zip tie these kind of closer in together here. You could wrap that up with some electrical tape or use a little piece of wire loom to kind of make it look nice. All right, now we can take care of getting our ground wire ran over. We're gonna go right behind the kick panel. On the driver's side here, got some good steel there we can use to get our ground set in. Just want to be sure we're going up over the brake pedal or anything like that. We want to come down with these wires, so we'll run our wire up and around and then down behind it. Now we're going to use a number 12 self-tapping screw to go in there, and we'll secure our ring terminal off to that. Now once again, we're going to take that extra white wire that we cut off. This would have been after we made our ground. We're going to slide a butt connector on that after we get it stripped. And then that's going to get crimped onto the illumination wire here. Now underneath your dashboard, there's just not going to be a good spot to get that running light circuit, so this is going to come on with your running lights. So we're going to go underneath our hood to our fuse panel. We use part number F2526 to make our connection. That's going to be a Firestone fuse tap. Get that connected properly. And what we need to do is go out of the grommet located right above this panel. Right up here on the firewall. You'll have a couple short pieces of airline tubing left, so what you'll do is poke that in from the outside toward the inside. We'll come in here, attach our wire, and pull it through. Now here's where that gromet's going to come out on our firewall. So again, we'll take a piece of our airline tubing, and this one has already had 3 different wiring bundles come through it, so there's plenty of accessories on this truck, that's for sure. We're going to be placing this through that same slot. If it doesn't already have them through there, just make a small cut there big enough for your airline to fit through and poke it on in. We'll pull down our tubing here. All right, now once we've got our airline tube down here, we're just going to tape that wire off to it. And remember, when you pull this through, you want to have it routed where you want it. So I've gone over top of a few wire looms in there. We're going to bring this right along with our other wire here, zip tie it off, and then that's going to be the point in which the other one's going to head towards the firewall. And we'll start gently pulling on their pull wire, and we'll want to pull that through. Now we've got our wire out here where we want to work. This is the fuse panel we're going to be going in. There's 2 tabs here on the front. You need to pull out on those tabs as you lift up on the cover. This is going to slide out. Now the number 15 fuse is our parking lamp circuit. That's going to be for the trailer. So anytime the parking lights come on, that fuse is going to have power. We'll test to make sure we got the right one. Just going to use a regular test light here, and we'll check it first with the running lights off. You can see no power there. But as soon as we turn those on, it gives us our signal. As soon as they go back off, it's going to go away. So that's what we're looking for. Anytime we turn the running lights on in the truck, we want our gauge to light up. We want to bring our wire up here how we intend to put it into the fuse panel. I'm going to be taking mine right across this little lip right here. So we'll know that'll be plenty of length. We're going to snip that off and get it stripped back. Now to the end of that, we're going to add the fuse tap right in line. Now this butt connector is going to be inside of the fuse box, so we don't have to worry about switching over to heat shrink or anything. Make sure we've got a good connection. Then we're going to pull that fuse out. That's going to go right in that bottom slot. And then we'll take our 10 amp fuse is all we're going to need for our light inside. So we'll stack that right on top. We can get that plugged right back in where it came out of. So a little bit of extra wire inside of there, that's not a big deal. We'll need to trim up slightly the lip right here on top. So I'm going to make a gap there that's just wide enough for our wire to pass through. I'm going to do the same thing on my cover. I just don't want to damage that gasket, because that'll actually push down around our wire and make sure we're not letting in a bunch of dust and stuff like that. That off there. Just clean that up a little bit. And then directly inside, here and here, we just need to take that material down just slightly. We'll line our wire up with that slot we created, and we can put our cover right back on. Now we're just going to go through and tidy up any of our loose wires, check all the components, and make sure everything looks nice and neat. Make sure everything's zip tied up and out of the way and all that good stuff. Now we can come back to our fuse holder here. We're going to pull out on the tab and separate it from its cap. We're going to pull that fuse out until we get our connection made. See, that's pre-stripped on the end. We're going to add on one of part number DW05705. This will be the ring terminal we'll need to go around our battery post. That crimped on, take off the 10mm nut that connects the cables to the terminal here. Now that's going to be connected to a T-bar on the bottom. So we'll have a nut and a washer. Our ring terminal should go down on, then our washer goes back on, and then our nut. We'll slide our fuse back in and slide it back into the cap there. Now if you'd like, you can secure this off somewhere else, but I think that's going to be a good, nice out of the way location, but still to be easy to get to. So now we're ready to test out the system, make sure it activates, and then we can check it for leaks. All right, now we'll test out the light. As you can see, that illuminates fine, so our running light signal's connected properly. Now we just want to press up on our lever, and that's that. We've got our activation. You can see the needle's gonna raise. We'll get that up to about 30 pounds or so. Then we can let it sit, make sure that we don't lose any pressure. By pulling down on the lever, that allows us to release air. By pushing up, we'll be able to add it, so we can instantly change the pressure in our airbags without having to run an air hose, stop by a gas station or something like that. We've got it up to about 30 pounds now. We can spray down each of our airline connections, including the two that we have here on the back. These are very, very seldom the source of any leak, but it's good to determine. We'll also check our T-fitting and each input to the airbag. Now we can get our kick panel put back in. We'll go in under our dash first, get those lined up, and then we'll tilt down on the back. Just like that. Now with no leaks detected, that's going to complete our installation of the Firestone Air Command 1 analog gauge standard duty compressor with single function on our 2015 Chevrolet Silverado 3500.